Hello, Rupa. Can you hear me? How am I coming in? Sean. All right. Welcome. So, since we have this kind of split stream thing, I'm sure there's going to be confusion and people are going to be on the other stream and all that kind of stuff. Hello, John. And Audrey, I'm going to assume. Hmm. There's a problem every time that have to restart the stream that the other stream doesn't actually seem to shut down. So I'm just going to just delete it here. Hello, Ian. Welcome. All right. So while we're waiting, let's start with our chanting. Magaseka chanting book. We'll chant on page 87. Oh, Douse, welcome. This is a decently long chant, so that'll give time for people to scroll in. Chant is Dana. Na samane na brahmane. Oh, should start with Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Na samane na brahmane na kapandika vanibbake ladhana samvibhajeti annang pannang cha bhojanang tangve avutikasamoti ahunang purisadamang ekachanang nadadati ekachanang pavechati tangve padesavasiti ahu medhavino jana subhikha vacho puriso sabbabhuta nukampako amodamano pakireti deta deta tibasati Yatapi megho tanayitva gajayitva pavasati. Talang ninnang chapureti abisandanto varina. Evang eva ete kacho puggalo hotita deso. Dhammanena samharitvana uttana diggata danang tapeti annapanena sammasate vanibbake. Yattapi kumbo sampunno yassa kassachi adhokato. Vamate yudakang nissesang natatta parirakati. Tateva yachake disva hinang ukatta majime dadahi dhanang nissesang kumbo viadokato. Tanang cha peyavajjancha attachariya cha yaeda sammatata cha dhammesu tatta tatta yatarahang ete ko sangaloke rattasani vayayato anado balado hoti vatado hoti vannado Yanado sukado hoti dipado hoti chakudo. Socha sabbadado hoti yo dadati upasayang. Amatang dadocha so hoti yo dhammang anusasati. English. Giving. Not with recluses or Brahmins, neither with the poor and the needy does the base man share his food or give drink with sustenance. People say that a selfish man is like a drought, a rainless sky. One who shares his wealth with some, but does not gladly give to others, is only like a local shower. In such a way the wise describe him. One who rains down bountiful gifts, gladly giving here and there, out of compassion for all beings, and who always says, "Give, give." This type of person is like a giant cloud filled with rain, thundering and pouring down refreshing water everywhere, drenching the highlands and the lowlands too, generous without distinction. With his wealth collected justly, won through his own efforts, he shares both food and drink with beings who are in need. Just as a pot filled with water is overturned by anyone, pours out all its water, and does not hold any back. Even so, when you see those in need, whether low, middle, or high, then give like the overturned pot, holding nothing back. Generosity, kind words, doing a good turn for others, and treating all people alike. These bonds of sympathy are to the world what the linchpin is to the chariot wheel. Giving food, one gives strength. Giving clothes, one gives beauty. Giving transport, one gives delight. Giving lamps, one gives sight. Giving shelter, one gives all. But one who instructs in the Dhamma, the excellent teaching of the Buddha, such a person gives ambrosia. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. Jose, good to see you. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Yeah, it seems like we're having a slow start, and I think that's because of this live stream error. But we'll keep going. I don't see Elaine on yet. Hopefully, Elaine won't get messed up with everything going on. Because we're going to give Elaine her Pali name today. It's a very auspicious thing. I don't give out Pali names willy-nilly. As a matter of fact, in all the years of the Discord community, I've only given out about 4 or 5. Elaine is here. Way, welcome. All right. Okay, friends. So, welcome to another Dhammapalooza, our Monday night 2-hour festival of Dhamma, where we do a variety of different things. We've done some chanting. Later on, we'll do some meditation, and in between, we'll see what happens. As some of you know, this is a community-led and community-driven event, which means that for the next couple minutes, what we'll do is this. If you have any questions you'd like me to answer, if you have any topics you'd like me to talk on, or any topics you'd like the community who's online now, live with us, to discuss related to Buddhism, meditation, monasticism, all these related Dhamma topics, then please put that in the chat. And we'll see how this goes. If it's the chat is quiet, then we can read a sutta. And then we will sometime in a little bit as we go along, we'll give Elaine her Dhamma name, and we'll do the 5 precepts. I actually have a couple of suttas that we can read related to Elaine's name, but we'll wait on those. I don't want to read those before then it'll give away what her name is. All right. We're still quiet here. Maybe it'll be a quiet Dhammapalooza. So let's read a sutta. Oh, never mind. Here comes question. Sean asks, Bante, I do a lot of exploration on my own without referring to the Buddhist canon until I'm stuck. I find this works for me, but would I be better off reading more of the canon first? I wouldn't say better off reading more of the canon first. I would say better off reading the canon as well. So the best way to understand the suttas is as a framework for your experience. Not only do they kind of give you guides on what to do in your practice, but they also explain to you what you will experience in your practice. So one of the easy ways to see this in action is in Digha Nikaya, the long discourses number 1. And actually, and also in number 2, the first 2 Digha Nikayas, you see that the Buddha explains how people will get into like jhanas and they get into these very deep states, but they will only see like half the picture. Like they'll only see, for instance, they'll see that they'll see a being that was really, really good in this life, and then they're born in a hell. Or they'll see a being who was really, really bad in this life, and then they're born in a heaven. And from that little small picture, they'll say, oh, well, I guess your actions don't matter. Right? And then they have wrong view. So this is the importance of understanding the suttas to help us to see when we actually sit down, when we meditate, when we practice, then we will see that the Buddha is kind of giving us signposts. explaining what we're going to see when we practice. And so when you don't have that framework, then it's much easier to be led astray, because there's all the going deep into the mind is a wild ride, and there's all kinds of ways that you can get lost. Right? There's, we know samma samadhi, right? The right samadhi, which is the jhanas. But there's, as Bhante Ji is very keen to point out, there's also miccha samadhi. There's wrong samadhi and wrong jhanas, right? These are different states that are kind of, side roads that you get lost down, that don't lead you down the Noble Eightfold Path, that don't lead you down the correct path towards the ending of your suffering. So this is why it's very important. There's a sutta, one of the 4 kinds of person sutta. Right? So the Buddha says there's 4 kinds of people. And as we know, if you've heard me talk long enough, there's like 10 or 12 4 kinds of people. But these 4 kinds of people suttas are great. Like 3 or 4 of them are just amazing. And so the 4 kinds of people in this one sutta are this: a person who studies but doesn't practice, a person who practices but doesn't study, a person who neither practices nor studies, they're the most lost, and a person who both practices and studies. And so the Buddha says the one who is supreme of these 4 is the one who practices, who studies and practices. And I believe it's just for exactly the reason why I said. It's because if you just go into the woods and just sit down and look at your mind, I mean, it's possible that you'll find the right path, but it's more likely that you'll be lost into all kinds of, side roads and traps and all kinds of places where you'll waste a lot of time. So this is why the Maggaseka community, the Discord, is we, when I describe describe the community, it's that we both study and practice the early texts, right? The early texts, the suttas, are our guide, and we practice in accords to the teachings in those suttas, right? So that's what the text, the early text, the suttas are for. They're both a guide and also instructions. So this is very important. This is why I don't recommend, like, one of the things that people really misunderstand is a famous quote from Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Chah will say, the only book worth reading is The Human Heart, where he'll say, stop reading so much. And what's missing is the context. The context is that Westerners, especially, this is not something that I really fell into, because to be honest with you, I've not read a lot of Buddhist books outside of the suttas. I've read some, like some of Ajahn Brahm, some of Ajahn Chah, some of Ajahn Bhante Ji, but not much else. And what he's talking about is this tendency for Westerners to just like consume Dhamma books. They just want to read did you see the new book from Ajahn so-and-so or Bhante so-and-so? Right? And so like you can just kind of get lost in this, almost like this consumerism of Dhamma books and not really get anywhere. Right? In the beginning, it is important to kind of, you need to fill your mind with Dhamma. So it's important in the beginning. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, this is enough. Like, I mean, I don't need to know what Ajahn so-and-so has said in their last 3 books. I just don't. I mean, maybe if they were my only teacher, okay, maybe. But like, it's a certain point where like, you do need to hear a lot. Like what I did was I heard lots of Dhamma talks. I always prefer to listen to Dhamma talks rather than to read Ajahn or Bhante so-and-so's book. For better or worse, it's just me. Like some people just really get benefit from reading these things. So it depends. But there's a point where it's like, okay, I've listened to enough Dhamma talks. Now I need to put this into practice, right? So the important thing is to find this balance between study and practice, right? If you don't want to just and unfortunately, this is a mindset that I see in a lot of the Thai forest, and this is why I don't no tradition do I see 100% beneficial. Like there's some things in Thai forest that I think are very beneficial, and other things that I don't think are beneficial. At least for me. And this kind of like, don't study, just go out in the woods and watch your mind. I don't think that's a good thing. I really don't. Um, and I think that Ajahn Chah, because Ajahn Chah knows the suttas. And this is how I know Ajahn Chah knows the suttas. Because I've listened to every one of his talks that are available in existence, like 30 times each. And he will bring up similes that are from the suttas, but they're from such an obscure sutta that nobody would really know it unless you actually read the sutta yourself, which I have because I've read through all the suttas. And I was like, whoa, he's using this. Now, obviously, like it probably had been like 15 years since he actually read the sutta last. So he wasn't exactly repeating exactly what the sutta says, but it was like 80% accurate. I was like, Ajahn Chah knows the suttas. This is amazing. Right. And so, you shouldn't like Ajahn Chah saying, don't read the books, just go out and study. It has to be put in the proper context, right? The proper understanding. Because Ajahn Chah took all the highest sutta tests in Thailand and he passed them all, right? He was a teacher of Vinaya, right? So he knows these things. But then he also decided, well, you know what? All I do is know these things. I need to go into the jungle. I need to go on Tudong. I need to wander and really delve into my practice. And so that was his balancing out. He had spent all these years studying, but he needed to balance it out with going deep into his practice. So it's important, I think, to keep that in mind, that you want to balance the two things out. You don't want to just do one or the other. You need both to really progress on the path. All right. So Elaine asked me a question that I have no idea about. Do you think Jesus was a bodhisattva? I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. Yeah, I mean, technically, anybody you meet could be one, or at least could have taken the vow sometime in the past. I mean, I don't know. Some of my Mahayana friends call me a bodhisattva, even though I've, renounced any bodhisattva vow I might have made in a past life. But they think because I like to share Dhamma with people and I have compassion to share Dhamma with people, that I'm a bodhisattva. It's just like a turn of phrase that they use. Um, but they don't know that in the early text, that's also just being a normal Dhamma teacher. Right? Everything you're supposed to do is for yourself and others. Your practice is supposed to be for yourself and others. Robert has a question. I see we have some people joining us, so welcome everybody. Welcome. You are not missing anything. We're coming into a little Q&A period. So if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. Or if you have a topic you'd like me to talk about a little bit, you can also put that in the chat. Also, you can say hello to everybody in the chat. You can talk to each other in the chat. That's not interrupting me. That's a good thing. This is supposed to be a community event. So we're all supposed to be here together. Yeah, Elaine, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he technically could have been, you know. I think Jesus said a lot of good stuff. My view from a fairly early age about religion is like all the religious or almost all the religions were started by like really wise people who were kind of very different than the average human. And then after they go away, humans take it over and screw it up. That's pretty much what happens. Same thing in Buddhism too. Buddhism has gone in all kinds of wacky ways since the passing of the Buddha, but he also knew this. Ah, Hubertus Herman, welcome. Good morning. Where are you saying good morning from? 8:30 p.m. So it could be Australia. Oh, Indonesia. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right, Hubertus. Okay, yes. Yes. One of my Indonesian friends. All right. So Robert has a question. I find myself bouncing between Theravada / the early texts, the Plum Village tradition, and Tibetan Buddhism. How do I settle and devote myself to one tradition? This is a tough question because I kind of have to recognize that there are just some people who might not fit so easily in one slot or another. Hello, Bella and Gautam. Welcome. And I mean, the only thing I could say is to just kind of keep exploring and keep and really investigate for yourself. Like, try to observe and see really if there is one that might call to you more. It's hard. I don't have an easy answer for this because it's not really for me. It was honestly, it was somewhat simple. I mean, I was like, okay, I want to be a Buddhist. What kind of Buddhist? And I looked into Tibetan, and it's like, no, that's not for me. Then I looked into Mahayana. I was like, no, it's not for me. And I looked into Theravada. I was like, well, okay, I think this is for me. And then as I got deeper, it's like, no, not Theravada, early text. Right. So it was kind of this gradual progression over some years where I just, found a home. And like when I found Theravada, it was like a missing puzzle piece for me. And so I have to acknowledge that it's not going to be that way for everybody. It's not going to be that kind of like an easy progression. And some people might, you know, so I guess what I would say is if there is one that maybe you connect with like 60% and the others are like, 20, 30, whatever. Um, Focus more on the one that is 60% and also include the other ones as well. But put more of a focus on the one that you think is um, that you connect with the most. I guess that's the best way I can put it. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be this kind of like spiritual window shopper and kind of just delve shallowly in a bunch of different ones. Like I don't think Bante G invented this one, but I think how I first heard this was from Bante G. He says it's like you're trying to dig a well to get water. And instead of digging one deep hole that goes all the way down to the water, you're digging like 10 shallow holes. Like, one shallow hole of Theravada, one shallow hole of Vajrayana, one shallow hole of Mahayana, one shallow hole of this, shallow hole of that. And you don't really get anywhere. Right. So that's kind of like one danger of the extreme of that. So in a way, you have to kind of figure that out for yourself. I don't think anybody can kind of tell you because it really has to come from within you what you connect with the most. And what I guess the only advice I can give is what I just said. Whatever you connect with the most, then that I would spend the most time on. Even though you could call me an early text fundamentalist, I still keep an open mind that I might learn something from Mahayana. I'm not going to spend any time to actually like go out of my way to. But if I'm engaging with somebody and they say, "Hey, this teaching," and I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting," then I keep an open mind for it. But but I keep my focus on what I find to be the most important, with an open mind for it to learn from outside. Elaine saying, "I think Jesus studied with Buddhist monks." I don't know. There's no proof of that. Now there is possibly proof that there were essentially Theravada monastics in Alexandria, Egypt, at the time Jesus and the family fled to Egypt. So, could he have had contact with Buddhists? Yes, possibly. The archaeologists have unearthed this group called the Therapeutae, and there's not 100% proof, but the the um, the scholarly leaning is towards them being a Buddhist sect. So could Jesus have made contact with Buddhists? Yes. Was he a Buddhist monk or something? Probably not. Like I know in Tibet they have this belief that Jesus went to Tibet and learned, and or this person um it is, it's like I actually remember watching a show where they like there are in Tibet, like there's groups of Tibetan Buddhists that's like this such and such came from the Middle East and learned the Dhamma and went back to the Middle East. So who knows, I don't know. Gautam and Bella are saying that I have heard in a talk by Jetsuma Tenzing Palmo. She wrote The Cave in the Snow. Okay, I guess. I don't know exactly what. So, you know what? Where are we at? We're at a half hour in. All right, so let's do this. Let's read. Oh, wait a second. Never mind. Here's a question. Every time I say, so Adriana has been busy and kind of sick. She hasn't been on here, but she always made the joke that every time I say, let's read a sutta, she would say, somebody quick, have a question. And it's a funny thing. Like every time I say, okay, let's read a sutta, and then magically a question appears. When I heard the Dhamma, I feel I can overcome every bad thing's happened to me. But when it happens, all Dhamma, I heard 5 years, all gone. Why is this Bante? Um, Hubertus, I don't know if I clearly understand that. Let me read it again. When I heard the Dhamma, I feel I can overcome every bad thing. That's good. That's like getting zeal and confidence in the Dhamma. That's good. But then when it happens, oh, okay, I get you. Oh, okay, I understand. I understand. So when things are going good and you hear the Dhamma, you feel, yes, the Dhamma is so wonderful. But then when something bad happens, it's hard to remember the Dhamma. Yes, this is true. This is true. One of my favorite monks, Bhante Silananda, he would talk about how when he became a monk, he's Sri Lankan, he became a monk when he was 11. And when he was maybe in his 30s, he's about 60 now, I think. When he was maybe mid to late 30s, his father died. And he had to give like a speech at his father's funeral. And he said that when he tried to give a Dhamma talk, but the Dhamma had left him, right? He couldn't give a Dhamma talk because he was so full of the strong emotion and the strong experience of his father dying. This is true. When times get hard, it's very easy to forget the Dhamma. And the reason being is because when times get hard, the only thing that we have really as a refuge, as a support, is our wisdom, our insight that we've developed on the path. And so when time gets when we have a hard experience, even we can say, Buddha says that this is not me. not mine, not myself. This is not me, not my, ow, ow, not me, not mine, not myself, right? We can try to convince ourselves, but that doesn't work because we haven't penetrated and overcome that bad experience with our wisdom yet. The teachings that we've heard, we haven't really understood with our deep wisdom yet. And so then when we have a bad experience, it disappears very easily. That's not, and that doesn't mean that you're a bad Buddhist. It doesn't necessarily even mean that for some reason you didn't understand the Dhamma. It just means that you haven't reached a certain point where your wisdom and insight understand the Dhamma to such an extent that you don't suffer as much. That's all that means. So when you have a bad experience, you can reflect on the Buddhist teachings, reflect on it, but you should also really try to be with it. Bring your mindfulness to whatever experience is happening, right? Just try to experience what is happening. If you're having a strong pain, maybe you're really, really sick. Try to be like, what is this sickness doing to my mind? Let me observe. Oh, how is my mind during this? What is my body like during this? The only thing you can do is to try to investigate it and to develop wisdom from that experience. And that will be hard. But you can try to do your best and try to develop any kind of understanding from that experience. Even if it's just a little bit, then that's a victory. If you were able to understand and develop a little bit of insight, it's a victory. Because it's not easy. It's very easy. Of course, there's Ajahn Chah in one of my favorite Dhamma talks. He talks about called In the Dead of Night. And he talks about how when he was meditating in the charnel ground, it's literally my favorite Dhamma talk of all time. It's the best Dhamma talk, in my opinion, of all time, from any teacher anywhere, other than the Buddha, outside of the suttas. But so he's talking about how he's in the charnel ground and he's meditating and he hears something, he feels something breathing, and he has so much fear, and he says, "Gone was Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha." He's like, he lost all his wisdom, all his teaching. The Buddha went away. The Dhamma went away. Like all his refuge in the triple gem went away. The fear was so overwhelming, right, that it went away. Right? This is a great forest master saying this about his own experience. Right? So this is how it is. And that's okay. But then he developed good wisdom from that experience, from having patient endurance to try to endure with it and to try to learn from it what he could and to apply his mindfulness to that experience to develop wisdom in it. All right. Okay, so Robert is just responding to my answer to his question. There are aspects of Plum Village in Tibetan Buddhism that I connect with, but the fact that I've not been able to connect with a Sangha suggests to me it might be best to stick to Theravada/early texts. It may be possible to practice as a solitary in any of these traditions, but it seems best to have a Sangha to help you in your practice. Yes, yeah. That sounds wise. Sounds good. All right, friends, we've had some more people join us. Very good. Welcome. If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat. right. I'm going to say the words and we'll see what question arises. Actually, you know what? No, I won't. Let's do the ceremony for Elaine. I think this is a good time to do that. It's nothing fancy. Robert has, do I have a favorite sutta? Yes. Satipatthana Sutta. The best sutta ever. After that, probably, I mean, there's so many. Like I've said, like this is my favorite sutta or one of my favorite suttas to about 30 suttas at least. But I think Satipatthana is, if I could only have one, that would be probably be it. The way leading to the ending of suffering, the direct path. All right, so this is the first time that on a Dhammapalooza that we've done this name ceremony. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, people in Buddhism get Pali names or Dhamma names for a variety of different ways. In Mahayana, you will get it like when you take the refuge and precepts from your guru, from your teacher will give you the name. In Theravada, it's not really something that's like normal. Like, you know, really like regular, like lay Thai people, lay Sri Lankan people are not kind of getting Buddha, like Pali names, as far as I know. Usually that's like when you become a monastic, you get a Pali name. But in the West, it's become something that helps as a kind of rite of passage. Now, I think it's a good thing. Like, for instance, for me, a rite of passage was doing something that people in Sri Lanka and Thailand, you know, start doing when they're 3 years old, right? Doing the refuge and precepts. Like, you know, you're like a little kid, you're doing the refuge and precepts. It's just like, it's like a birthright, right? But like for somebody who's a convert, when you take the refuge and precepts, then you quote unquote become a Buddhist. Right? In the suttas, that is how somebody became a monastic at the time of the Buddha. Well, in the beginning, the very first round of people who became monastics, the only way the way you became a monastic was the Buddha said, "Come, bhikkhu," and then you were a monastic. That's nice and easy, simple, right? And then it developed to where you go for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma Sangha, and you take the precepts, and then you become a monastic. And then that became something for lay people, and then monastics. Then it was the full patimokkha. So it was a gradual progression. So, you know, I didn't get a Pali name in 2008, when I quote unquote became a Buddhist, when I did the refuge of precepts. Because, well, first it was at a Mahayana monastery, but second, it was just not something that was part of the process. I got a Pali name from taking the 8 lifetime precepts with Bhante Ji at Bhavana Society. I don't quite know if this is something that Bhante Ji himself exactly invented. It might have been somebody earlier than him. But as far as I know, Bhante Ji's really, and kind of people from his, who kind of come from his either lineage or kind of have adapted it from him, are the only people who offer this 8 lifetime precept ceremony, which is really just the 5 precepts expanded with expanded right speech and right livelihood added on. It's for lay people. It's not it's not like the 8 monastic precepts. And so like myself, Reed, I think maybe Shab and some other people, um, at Bhavana Society during a retreat, like a 7-day retreat. At the end of that, you get a certificate, you get a Pali name. Bhante Ji gives you a little shower. So that means like in traditional Sri Lankan and Thai, they have this kind of wick, like this wick thing of like reeds, and they put it in the water, and then they flick it out, just like growing up in the Catholic Church, especially like on Easter and like the priest, I was the altar boy that held the little thing of water going with the priest. And the priest does the thing and he goes, and he flicks the water, right? So they do that just in the same thing. They flick the water at you. And so, Bhante Ji says, give you a little shower. And he flicks the water as you're bowing, right? And then he tells you your Pali name. And so this is something that I suggest, if you want to do that, to have a good ceremony in doing it after a good retreat, go to Bhavana. Bhavana's retreats are open now, but it has to be a 7-day retreat. Although, in all honesty, Bhavana is a bit different now, so you have to check to see if they even offer it. But even still, but there are people who have been part of the Maggaseka community over the last 5.5, 6 years, and they aren't going to take a flight to Bhavana. Sometimes they're even in a different country. And they've asked me, like, Bhante, can I have a Pali name? And if it was somebody who I knew was a serious practitioner and they wanted to kind of have this as a way of kind of a transition or a way to kind of enhance their practice, then I went through the process of giving them the name. And I think it's a good thing, but I don't want to do it in such a way. Like there's been people I was like, hey, Bhante, like they're just like brand new to Buddhism. They're brand new to the server. Oh, Bhante, can I have a Pali name? No, sorry, not going to happen. I do want it to mean something, right? So it's just not, hey, everybody, you get a Pali name, you get a Pali name. I mean, you could do it. There's no rule. I mean, you're not going to read the suttas and see like you should only get a Pali name. There's no such thing. It's basically all made up in a way, but it has a good purpose, right? It has a good purpose, and I want to make sure. Elaine is somebody I know who's been part of the community for a while, and she's a practitioner, and she's somebody who she asked me, and I thought about it. I says, yeah, sure, I'll give her a Pali name. And so the way that people give a Pali, like this is the same way, like the way I give you a Pali name is the same way that Bhavana Society gives you a Pali name. It's the same way that monks get a Pali name. So how it goes is, it goes by the day of the week that you were born. And the day of the week that you were born corresponds to about 4 to 6 letters in Pali. And so then the monastic, they either have a big old book, or you can go on a website that has a whole huge, like hundreds of Pali names. And you can go through and it will tell you the Pali name, and it'll tell you like, this was such and such a monastic in the time of the Buddha, or it will tell you the importance behind the name. And so what I try to do is, this is another reason why I like to do it if I get to know the person first, because I go by my intuition, and I go by like this kind of like understanding of like, this is the person's name. Like I'll go through hundreds of names, and then one name will just like pop right out. And I'll just read, okay, what is this? The story behind this name? What does the name mean? I'd be like, oh yeah, this is perfect. Right? Like I really want to give you like a perfect Pali name. It's not just like, I'm just going to just throw one at you. Right? It has to mean something. It should mean something. And so with Elaine, Elaine's Sunday. It was interesting because this is the first time I've given somebody on a Sunday, and it's an eclectic. It's a interesting bunch of Pali Pali alphabet, and I went through all of them, but there was one name that just, especially for Elaine, that just stood out way above all the rest. And it was in the section for V. And so the name that I chose for Elaine is the name of essentially the Buddha's foremost female lay disciple. It's Visakha. So Elaine, this is the name that I've given to you. And if you want to read all the different things behind Visakha, then you can check out that link. So why don't we, so Visakha is the chief among the female lay disciples of the Buddha and declared by him to be the foremost among those who ministered to the order. She is considered to be the ideal laywoman. Right? So we have Visakha. And I think, Elaine, this is a perfect name for you, I think. So now that we have the name, why don't we do the precepts? And then after that, we'll read 2 somewhat short suttas with the Buddha speaking to Visakha. All right? So anybody else who wants to do the precepts, you're welcome to also take the precepts. But Elaine, I have a lot to live up to, or a little bit to live up to. Yes, that's one of the great things about a Pali name. Elaine, do you want to know what my Pali name was that Bhanteji gave to me? Speaking of which, so my Pali name that Bhanteji gave to me, this is before I became this is my first name, was Jayanta. Jayanta means victorious one. And I remember I was bowing to Bhante, and he told me, your name is Jayanta, victorious one. I said, only if it means victory, over the defilements of Mara and becoming awakened. He says, yes, that's exactly what it means. And I said, that's a lot to live up to. So it's basically like, here's the name. Jayanta is essentially an epithet for the Buddha. So it's like victorious one, awakened being. Yeah, that's a lot to live up to. So I said, wow. But it was like a call. It was a call to action. It's like, yes, Jayanta, that's a good name. Okay? And then when I became, when I wanted to become ordained, and the Sri Lankan monk said, you can't be Jayanta. That's a layperson's name. And indeed it is. See, so interestingly enough, my name that I was born with is Joseph, Giuseppe, Jose. That's my name, right? Basically the most common English man's name in existence. And it just so happens that Jayanta is like the most common man's name in Sri Lanka, right? And there's even a corporation called Jayanta Corp. I Googled it. And so I was like, yeah, okay, no, this is not a good monk's name. So I wanted to keep the Jaya because everybody was already calling me Bhante J. And so then Bhante gave me the name Jayasara. So Jaya means victory. Sara means a most excellent. So my name means a most excellent victory. And that's a little bit less. It's a little bit less of a heavy burden than a victorious one. But it's basically the same thing. So it's good to have a name that you can practice to live up to. All right. So let's do the precepts. And so, Elaine, if you guys just repeat after me as we're going along. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. This is just for me. Tisarana gamanang sampunang means the refuges are complete. Now repeat. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kame sumichachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sura meriya majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Now the rest is me. Kisarane nasading panchasilang dhammang samadhiyatva sadhukang surakatang katva appamadena sampadeta abang. Silena sukating yanti, silena bhoga sampada, silena nibbuting yanti, tasma silang visodaye. All right, Elaine. Or should I say Visakha? Congratulations. May you live up to the name and do well. Be a very good practitioner. Continue to practice well. And so, one thing that I have thought about just recently, thinking about because about doing this on Dhammapalooza is actually as a essentially a disciple of Bante Ji, the idea that I would, basically continue on the tradition of doing the 8 lifetime precepts was always a given. And I've thought about the possibility of doing it over Zoom for people who like are in different countries or who are probably never going to be able to go to Bhavana and do it with Bhante Ji. Um, it's something that I've thought about. So keep in mind if you're possibly interested about it in the future. I don't know. I'm still kind of contemplating it and thinking back and forth about how best to do it. Again, because I want it to be very meaningful. It should be something like, you've been practicing for a couple years and you're looking to do something that's kind of like to deepen your practice, kind of a thing. Like that's how it was for me. When I took the 8 lifetime precepts, it's 2000, it was early 2012. So it was like March 2012. So I had been a Buddhist for almost 4 years by that point, right? It wasn't like I was just a Buddhist and then I just took the 8 lifetime precepts. So it's good. It's a good thing that to be like and to get the name and to have that ceremony and to do it, in such a way that can act as a initiation into a deeper practice. Again, keep it in mind. I don't know when I do it. It could be many, many months from now or a year from now. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I want to see how it unfolds, but it's an idea. All right. So let's read some suttas with the Buddha and Visakha. So we'll read the short one first. Hello, PGS. So this is Udana 2.9. So I have heard at one time the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in the eastern monastery, the stilt long house of Megara's mother. Who do you think Megara's mother is? Visakha. Now at that time, Visakha was caught up in some business with King Pasenadi, but the king's settlement did not meet her expectations. She went to an audience with the king and she didn't like how it worked out. Then, in the middle of the day, she went to the Buddha, bowed, and sat down. The Buddha said to her, "So, Visakha, where are you coming from in the middle of the day?" "Sir, I am caught up in some business with King Pasenadi, but the king's settlement did not meet my expectations." Then, understanding this matter on that occasion, the Buddha expressed this heartfelt sentiment. And maybe you've seen this. This is in the Dhammapada, if I'm not mistaken. All under another's control is suffering. All under one's own authority is pleasing. What's shared is stressful for both parties, for bonds are hard to escape. Right? Nice, simple teaching. What is out of your control, if you expect, right? What do I always say? Expectations equal suffering. Whatever's out of your control, if you expect something out of your control, if you try to control something out of your control, it's just suffering. There's I think the way this is translated, all subjection to another is suffering, is the way this is translated. What is shared is stressful for both parties. So that's a small one. Now, to a famous one, to words that many lay people might not like to hear. This is also again in the Udana with Visakha. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in the eastern monastery, the still longhouse of Migara's mother. Now, at that time, the dear and beloved granddaughter of Visakha, Migara's mother, had just passed away. So Visakha, who I don't know if they say it in here, but the tradition holds it that Visakha had 60 some odd grandchildren. So Visakha has a huge, huge family. And we'll see here why. So, now at that time, the dear and beloved granddaughter Visakha, Migara's mother, had just passed away. Then, in the middle of the day, Visakha went with wet clothes and hair to the Buddha, bowed and sat down to the Buddha, and said to her, "So, Visakha, where are you coming from in the middle of the day with wet clothes and hair?" "Sir, my beloved granddaughter has just passed away. That's why I'm here in the middle of the day with wet clothes and hair." "Visakha, would you like as many children and grandchildren as there are people in the whole of Savatthi?" Right? So the Buddha's like, would you like as many children and grandchildren as there are all these thousands of people in this great town? What do you think her answer is? "I would, sir." This is a person who really loves kids. I understand it. I love kids too. But I'm happy I don't have 60. All right. All right. So, but Visakha, how many people pass away each day in Savatthi? Every day, sir. There are 10 people passing away in Savatthi. Or else there are 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or at least one person who passes away every day in Savatthi. Savatthi is never without someone passing away. It's a big hint there, huh? Very interesting. So if you had as many family members as all the people in Savatthi, then you're going to lose at least one every day. What do you think, Visakha? Would there ever be a time when your clothes and hair were not wet? "No, sir. Enough, sir, with so many children and grandchildren." Now here comes the famous line. Elaine's saying, "Say no, Visakha, say no." Of course, hopefully Elaine's is Elaine, is your daughter here with us tonight? All right. So Buddha says, those who have 100 loved ones, Visakha, have 100 sufferings. Those who have 90 loved ones, or 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or one loved one, have one suffering. Those who have no loved ones have no suffering. They are free from sorrow, stains, and anguish, I say. That's a tough pill to swallow, huh? Especially if you have family. But I think what should be understood here is not that the Buddha is saying like, "Oh, you're really stupid for having family," whatever. Like this kind of like very like people in the West are very like this like anti-natalist kind of like the Buddha is simply saying the Buddha is simply stating a fact in this, right? For instance, I'm a monk. Do you think I have zero sufferings? No, of course not. I still have a mother. I still have a father. I'm not awakened. When they die, I'm going to suffer. I mean, unless I somehow become awakened by the time they die. We'll see. But when they die, I will suffer. It's simple. The Buddha is saying that this is the nature of having an attachment to another person, right? The 5 subjects of contemplation. What's number 4? I will be separated from everything and everyone I love and hold dear. The Buddha is simply stating a fact here that because you have dear ones, it is inevitable and it should be expected that when loss comes, you will suffer. And so I know that when my mom, literally like a month ago, my mom was basically on death's doorstep. Now she's better now, or at least getting better. But, one day she'll die. And this is the person who brought me into the world. And I don't know, maybe I will be like Bhante Silananda and maybe the Dhamma will leave me when she dies. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think I'll handle it a lot better than the average person who doesn't have lots of years of meditation and Dhamma practice and insight into the Dhamma. But I'm still going to suffer. I expect that. I understand that. When I met Bhante Analayo, one of the wisest things he ever said was he had just come from taking care of his parents. For like 2 years, he lived with his parents. And he said, a wise practitioner takes care of the responsibilities he has and does not create new ones. So, that's very, like I thought, wow, that's very wise, right? So like, I have responsibilities. I have parents. I have sisters. I have nieces and nephews, right? And there's an attachment there. But now that I'm a monk, I don't have to go out and find a girlfriend, right? Get another attachment. I have responsibilities and I have attachments that are already there. So let me not build more. Right? So that's a very wise way of looking at it, I think. So now continuing on with the sutta, we'll finish this out, then we'll do our guided meditation, and this Dhammapalooza will be basically over. All right. So, yes, those who have no loved ones have no suffering. They are free of sorrow, stains, and anguish, I say. Then, understanding this matter, on that occasion, the Buddha expressed this heartfelt sentiment. All sorrows and lamentations and the countless forms of suffering in the world occur because of those that we love. Without loved ones, they do not occur. That's why those who have no loved ones at all in the world are happy and free from grief. Now, I remember I mentioned this, and somebody said, well, there's also the suffering of loneliness and fear of missing out. And the Buddha, I guess that is true. But when you've reached a certain point in your practice, the Buddha is saying, what the Buddha is saying is true. They're happiness and free of grief. So aspiring to that sorrowless state, have no loved ones at all in the world. All right, divorce your spouse, give your children up to the state. No, this is not. This is obvious. Obviously, Visakha just didn't go home and say goodbye to all her 60 grandkids, right? But it's a lesson. It's an understanding to understand the nature of this reality and to understand the nature that when you have a bond, you will suffer. It's simple as that. Doesn't mean to be this doesn't mean to be negative or something that you should, whip yourself over. It's just you were born because you're born into the world, you have the bond of mother and father. You're born already bonded, as it were. All right. So very quickly, I see a question. Does the Buddha actually say everything is dukkha? If I remember correctly, what he's explaining the Four Noble Truth, he doesn't actually say that literally everything is dukkha. So it's very important to understand. People, places, experiences, things out in the world do not have an inherent dukkha-ness. Right? You have a awesome big bowl of ice cream, right? There's no inherent dukkha-ness to the ice cream. The dukkha comes from my mind and the craving. Somebody says, here, but they have this big bowl of ice cream, and craving arises in their mind. And they say, ha ha, no. And then they run away, right? And then what happens? Dejection. Oh. Or like, oh, I'm going to get that ice cream. And you go chasing after the person with the ice cream, right? The dukkha was created in my own mind because of my own grasping and craving for that ice cream. Dukkha is what you create. It is a characteristic of all things because anything that you can attach to in existence will cause you suffering. Anything. From the most gross thing, like the ice cream, to the most subtle thing, like the belief that these thoughts are me, mine, myself. So if you don't attach to anything, you don't have any dukkha. Simple as that. All right. Okay, friends. So it's 9:25. So let's do a half-hour meditation. And then that should give us the last 5 minutes to do the closing stuff, sharing of merit, and business. So set yourself up in a posture that's comfortable for you. Spend a few minutes scanning through the body from the tips of the toes up to the head. To observe our posture and minimize pain and imbalance. Bring your awareness to your feet. By that, this means pay attention to any sensations that arise, like the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion, any painful or pleasant experiences that arise in the feet. Pay attention to these. Move your awareness up through the ankles and into the calves. through the knees, into the thighs. What is the feeling of the thighs pressing against the chair, the cushion? If you have trouble connecting with any sensation, you can ask yourself, what can I see? What can I feel? This prompt can often bring a sensation to your awareness. Bring your awareness to the pelvis and hips. Observe how the position of the pelvis and hips impacts your posture, both the upper and lower body, especially the position of the spine. When you're ready, move up the spine through the abdomen and the chest, checking that the spine is not leaning and slouching. Try to observe the balance of your back and spine. See if there's any feelings of tightness or discomfort. The posture being off can especially bring feelings of pain to the back, even if you don't normally have back issues. Bring your awareness down through the elbows and the hands. Observe how the position of the elbows and hands impacts your posture. And finally, bring your awareness to your head. Check to see that the head is balanced, chin parallel to the floor, not leaning and slouching. When you've set up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. Your body has been breathing from the moment you were born. It will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath as this body breathes in and breathes out. As you're following your breath, your mind will become bored, will run away to the past and the future, across the world or the galaxy. Or an external thing like a sound will arise. The mind will become attached to it, maybe agitated by it. When that happens, gradually it will dawn on you that you've been taken away from the breath. At that point, acknowledge that you've been taken away from the breath and marshal all your mindfulness. Come to back to full awareness. Then practice letting go of the distraction by neither getting agitated and pushing it away, nor getting excited and grabbing onto it. Simply give it no energy. Let it go as it came, and then return to the breath. Acknowledge, let go, and return over and over. Continue to follow the breath as I give instructions on metta. This metta practice can be done with both words and visuals. But the words and visuals are not the goal of the practice. They're a means to the end. The goal of practicing metta is the abandoning of ill will in your mind. In every nook and cranny, every corner, to abandon ill will in the mind. And to develop warm-hearted feelings of friendship for all beings. When I start, we'll say the words and I'll tell you when to repeat in your own mind. And I'll also offer visuals if you'd like to take them. You don't need to if you don't want to. But it's good to start giving metta and friendliness towards the being that you may often have the most agitation towards, the most dislike of, maybe even hatred towards. That person is ourselves. We cannot hope to give our metta out to all beings without first building it up inside of us, immersing ourselves with goodwill and friendliness. If you like, you can imagine a sphere around you. Not much larger than the surface of your body. And we want to pervade and fill that sphere with our goodwill, our metta. Repeat the words. May I find happiness. May I find peace. May I live in friendship with all beings. May I find release from suffering. When we say these words, we just don't want to just repeat them over and over like a mantra. When we say these words, we want to try to really mean them and put our warm hearted feelings of friendliness behind them, like wishing them for a good friend. If you like, you can also visualize yourself in front of you, like looking in a mirror, and you can aim your thoughts of goodwill towards that vision. Repeat the lines. May I find happiness. May I find peace. May I live in friendship with all beings. May I find release from suffering. If you like, you can visualize yourself giving the image in front of you a hug, or it giving you a hug. Like friends who embrace after meeting, after being away for a long time. Well, let's begin to spread our sphere out to start encompassing other beings. Spread your sphere out to encompass the entirety of whatever building you're in, filled with many beings, human, animal, insect, visible and invisible beings, all kinds of beings in this building. None exempt. Repeat the words. May all of us find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. We've switched the words to all of us because now you are always included. No matter how large the sphere gets, you are included in all beings. So it's always a wish for yourself and all beings. Spread your sphere to encompass the entirety of whatever town or village that you're in. Even greater amounts of beings. May all of us in this town find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Spread your sphere to encompass the entirety of whatever state or province, region that you're in. Probably millions or beings, large and small, visible and invisible. May all of us in this state or region find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. We say the words, may we find, because people cannot be given peace. People cannot end suffering from somebody doing so for you on the outside. So we develop these warm-hearted feelings of goodwill and friendship, and a wish that these beings know what is good and practice well. Spread your sphere to encompass the entirety of whatever country you're in. If you have a good image of the country in your mind, you can envision that country fully encircled by your sphere of metta. May all of us in this country billions and maybe trillions of beings. Animal, human, insects, seen and unseen. So many beings. May all of us find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Friends, when we practice metta like the sun shines down on all beings. No being is exempt. When we practice metta, race doesn't matter, sex, religious affiliation, political affiliation, sports team, whatever various ways that we categorize each other. Metta breaks through barriers. It is limitless. Limitless goodwill for all beings without exemption, exception, or discrimination. Even the beings that you don't like. We practice giving metta to, giving our friendship to. Spread your sphere to encompass the entirety of this planet Earth. Trillions of beings. On a pale blue dot in a sea of darkness. You can visualize the Earth totally englobed by your sphere of metta. May all of us on this planet Earth find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Friends, we don't have any misconceptions that everyone around the earth will hold hands and sing songs and be friends. This is not the nature of reality. This metta is not a utopian practice. But still, we can develop in our mind thoughts of goodwill and friendship for all beings, and a wish that they also develop this for themselves. Spread your sphere out into the cosmos to encompass the entirety of our home galaxy, the Milky Way. Billions of stars and planets. Who knows how many beings? May all of us in this Milky Way galaxy find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Continue to spread your sphere out into the cosmos, into wherever there may be beings, whether that's other dimensions, universes, whatever. Spread our sphere out to infinity to encompass every sentient being in existence anywhere. May all of us sentient beings in the samsaric state find happiness. May all of us find peace. May all of us live in friendship with each other. May all of us find release from suffering. Slowly start to come back through the universe, becoming aware of your body, opening your eyes, adjusting again to the room around you and your space in it. All right, friends. So we come again to the end of another Dhammapalooza. Some business. We do Dhammapalooza same time every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. So we'll be back again next week. I release a video on my YouTube channel every Wednesday when I can. Ask Abante. So if you have any questions you'd like me to answer on video, either for yourself or if, questions you think might be good for other people who would see the videos later, then please share with me your questions. I am getting a little bit low on the stock of questions, so any other questions will be good. Um, or I can just start making some up. But it's better when other people ask me, give me questions to answer. The other thing, if you'd like to uh, check out our community, our Discord community, Mudgaseka, Students of the Path. It's a community that, as I said earlier, is based in the early texts, both in study and practice. We're not a general Buddhist community. We don't just have everybody and their mother come and public and talk about all kinds of Buddhism and things like that. We do try to keep a very specific focus. And if that's something you're interested in, you can send an email to mugaseka@gmail.com and ask for an invite, and we'll send you one. If you don't know my website already, it's mugaseka.com or no, org. And I think that's about it. Thursdays, I do a session at 8 p.m. on a program called Second Life. If you're on Insight Timer, I'm starting to do weekly sessions on Insight Timer, 2 p.m. on Saturdays. Um, I don't know if I'm going to do every week permanently. It might be a little bit too much. I recognize that when I start doing too much Dhamma stuff and I have to cut back a bit. But I'm going to be doing Insight Timer um, pretty regularly from here on in, especially because, I mean, the amount of people that go to them is amazing. It's a pretty big group that I get to connect with. And I think that's about it. That's about it for business. So let's share merit, and we'll end for the night. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta chani soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha amehi, sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti sittiya. Akasatta Jabumata Deva Naga Mahiddika Punyang Tang Anumoditva Charang Rakantu Sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share in this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends, until we meet again, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy, practice well, and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice. Have a good night.